Hey, hello out there in Cyberworld. We're excited to be with you again. Dr. Richard, Dr. Miguel, Dr. Anvita, and our special guest today, Jed Archibald. So this is our third full session on Dental Raves and Occasional Rants. And so thanks for watching. Please, if you like this, subscribe. There's no charge for any of this. We're all putting our time in. And push the notifications so you get the notifications. And please refer your friends. All right, well, let's get going with section 1. We're going to talk about our raves, occasional rants, go through some questions. So let's get started. Okay, everybody, that was great. Let's move on to our next session here, our literature review session with Dr. Anvita Maharishi, one of my former graduate students that I'm actually learning from today. She's phenomenal. She's got more masters than Tiger Woods, I think, and a professor in the professor series. That was a joke, okay?
But a better marriage, right?
I'm not, yeah. I know I'm not funny. That's why I'm a dentist, okay? But anyway,
that's right.
Yeah, we've got our ravers and our ranters in the background there. All right, so let's get going here. Let me bring this presentation up here. Okay, you've got the ball, Anvita.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Dental Raves and Rants. And I would be doing the literature review section again with you guys. And today's topic is going to be additive manufacturing of dental ceramics. So we all know for several years, subtractive computer-aided manufacturing, CAM, commonly used for dental ceramic prosthesis fabrication, has been working. But some limitations such as small areas that are difficult to machine, and there's a lot of material wastage when we mill some ceramics such as zirconia. So now people have been looking at alternative strategies to manufacture these materials, and because additive manufacturing just picking up overall in the dental field, AM of dental ceramics looks like to be the so-called future of restorative dentistry. We don't know yet. So just getting into the definition, ASTM defines additive manufacturing as a process of joining materials to make objects from three-dimensional model data, usually layer upon layer, as opposed to subtractive manufacturing methodologies, which uses a CNC machine to do the same. I picked this paper from 2020. We are 4 years after this publication, but just to review what is or was out there, we have made progress ever since this paper was published. Marta and Amir Ali talk about the applications of additive manufacturing technology for processing zirconia. So this paper discusses some current AM technologies to manufacture zirconia, such as SLA, DLP, which is direct light processing, material jetting is another one, inkjet printing, as we call it, and then material extrusion or fused deposition modeling, powder bed fusion. One of the more common methodology under this category is the selective laser sintering. Then there's also direct energy deposition or laser cladding, sheet lamination or laminated object modeling, and then binder jetting is also one of the processes that can be used to manufacture zirconia via 3D printing. So what is the current evidence? There have been several groups that are looking at where we stand in terms of the mechanical properties, so to speak, and also how is this stuff looking under the microscope. So Ebert et al. Reported, as per this review that Marta did, strength to be around 763 megapascals. And then the problem is the CM analysis reveals a lot of surface defects, internal defects, and high porosity in these materials. So yes, with these several technologies I mentioned in the previous slide, it is possible to make a 3D printed zirconia material, but at the same time, we have some limitations that we need more technology and advances to tweak upon. Some of the manufacturers that fabricate 3D printed zirconia are 3D Ceram, Admatac, and Lithos. And then the properties of these materials have been listed by some of the manufacturers, where we're looking at the particle size to be between 0.1 to 0.8, and then flexural strength, to be as high as 1,000 for some of the materials, and some of the materials are reporting 700. Again, this is manufacturers reported data. We need more people to commercially produce these materials because some of them are very limited to R&D only from these companies. So there's still not a commercially available product that is ready to be used inside the mouth. And we'll talk about one of the products that is actually available and how it differs in the properties to currently existing materials. So talking about some of the current problems we have with 3D printing of zirconia is sintering distortion. Porosity control is a major factor. Poor geometrical accuracy, but some of the studies do show good trueness and precision. Some of them don't. But overall, it's a generic problem. Poor optical properties, because with machined zirconia, we are already looking at some phenomenal gradient materials. So doing a layer-by-layer deposition of 3D printed zirconia is going to be the next challenge. Marginal gap, we all know clinically acceptable is between 50 to 120 microns. And some of the papers do report that we do get that kind of marginal tolerance with 3D printed zirconia materials, whereas other studies report some data otherwise. But we are there. This is a technique that was described by, again, Amirali and Marta to produce gradient structure by layer multi-layer jetting of these materials. So going to our rant section and just building up thought-provoking ideas for today's discussion, that does additive manufacturing of zirconia have a real advantage over CAD/CAM? Or again, as our podcast members say, are we creating another problem to solve something which really is not a question that exists? Meaning, we have an ideal material and are we looking for more stuff to do by creating a 3D printed zirconia for us? So it's people promoting this also talk about reducing the wastage that a milling would generate. And also, are we gaining anything in terms of the production time? Is additive manufacturing reducing the production time of zirconia restorations that we're already generating by machining them? So the current materials that exist are actually under the umbrella of the hybrid nanoceramic, and they're not actually 3D printed ceramic crowns. And I'm hiding the manufacturer name here, but it's just want to talk about what is out there. The flexure strength of these materials are with around 150 megapascals, and the modulus around 7.5. Again, composition-wise, they are a hybrid nanoceramic, and we can talk about that more in our discussion today. And this is, again, my slide about raves. What's good about the technology? So yes, this looks like an alternative technology in future for ceramic restorations. Future looks promising with more advancement of technology and research that is needed. And this is another review in the Journal of Aesthetic and Restorative Dentistry that is very interesting to look at in terms of processing parameters for the fabrication of all ceramic crowns. So we talked about a lot of papers and evidences out there, and I will lead you guys up to questions. So
I guess my questions to you from and also from what I've seen here. So what I think I heard you say is that we're not really there yet with 3D printed ceramics. What we think of as zirconia or glass ceramics, but there's been a lot of movement in that area, and we're going to get there someday. Was that accurate? Did I assess that correctly?
I'm only talking about 3D printing of zirconia.
Yes, well, zirconia, or I've heard that we are also in the beginning phases of 3D printing glass ceramics like lithium disilicate.
I don't have a paper regarding that currently.
Okay.
In this.
But your knowledge base, what I'm hearing you say is we're not quite there yet. And what I've seen with zirconia so far with the printing of it, I'm loving the concept, but the physical properties seem to be significantly less than the machinable materials, which I'm not that concerned about because zirconia is such a strong material. What I'm more concerned about is I haven't seen optical properties, and I believe you touched on that come anywhere close to the machinable materials we have today. So is that pretty much what you see in the papers and what you've seen in your experience?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now you briefly touched on 3D printing of what people are calling nanoceramic materials, okay? And that are being sometimes sold and called a ceramic crown. I'm assuming you're talking about these newer versions of 3D sort of resins that we've talking about, like several on the market. I could name 3 or 4. Sprint Ray has some material. Rodin has some material.
Correct.
Whitman
I don't want to name them. Yes.
Well, I'm not trying to signal any particular one out. I would like to go down that path a little bit with the team. We've got several. We've got Dr. Ortiz, obviously Richard, Dr. Young on the line here, and you. So we've got.
Would you? I will let you go down that rabbit hole that pisses me off.
Yeah, well, there you go. That summed it up too. I think I'd be a little bit more politically correct than you, but that's why we have.
Well, you're the one who named them. I didn't name anything.
Yeah. So.
But
I still want to get sponsored by these companies, but.
Yeah, but
yes.
Here, yeah. Well, go ahead, Dr. Young. Go ahead, take over.
I mean, I want Miguel to comment further on why he's so pissed off.
I think we allowed the companies about 10 years ago to make blocks and misname them. And then now it has gone out of control. This idea of nanohybrids, nanoceramic, ceramics here, ceramic there, when we know that most of the blocks that you don't need to put in the oven or that you can't put in the oven, let's say, they're resin blocks. The matrix is made out of resin, and we have a filler content of some kind of ceramic sometimes, most of the times. And the companies are trying to put the word ceramic in there because it's more appealing than the word resin in it
to sell.
But now it's moving to the 3D printing, in which we're all talking about 3D printing ceramics. And as Ed said it, I don't know if there is in the market right now, in the dental market, something that dentists are using, that is actually a 3D printed ceramic, meaning are you at the end having a glass matrix? Did you heat it up somewhere to melt all this glass together in a way, or we're still talking about resins and fillers? Because I think it's getting out of control, the misnomenclature of this, and it's misleading.
Right, it's extremely misleading, and so we should define a couple of things. I mean, if you look in the ceramic literature, the official ceramic societies, the literal definition of a ceramic means a material that's made of under the densification, semi-metallic material made by the densification of heat, and by definition doesn't have carbon in it, okay, resin. Okay, that's what a ceramic is, okay? And zirconia would apply to that, believe it or not. Glass would, so would porcelain under that definition, so would lithium disilicate, okay? That's made by the densification of heat from a semi-metallic compound, okay? Now, resin composite that we've had around since the beginning of time, okay, we say resin, but it really is a resin composite. By definition, those are materials that have a resin matrix. They've gotten better and better over time. Those of us that practice know there are some excellent materials over there. And they've had some sort of ceramic filler in there, quartz, a few other types of microscopic pieces of glass, zirconia in some cases that are bound by the resin. And the two limiting factors for that type of material, one has been the size of the particle, okay? Not so much the type of particle, whether it was quartz or zirconia. So the size of the particle and the number of particles in the resin matrix. And then number 3, how well the manufacturers were able to attach those microscopic ceramic particles to the resin matrix. And there's several chemical technologies they do that. So the better they do that, the number of more particles, the size of the particles, and the bonding of the particles between the resin and the matrix, the better resin composite we have. We could name Filtech Supreme Ultra, we could name something from Kerr, we could name something from Ultradent. There's several good products out there on the market that are very comparable that we've done very well. And to Dr. Ortiz's point, to Miguel's point, is what's happened is we now have 3D printable materials that actually have worse physical properties so far. They're not as well filled, they don't have as much filler particle, and in fact, when you see them report their physical properties, like Dr. Maharishi just said, the modulus of elasticity is actually less than a regular composite and significantly less than dentin, which creates its own issues. We can get into the mechanics of that or the chemistry of that, but also too, because of the lower filler, we don't know yet how well they're going to wear in the mouth. We do have some interesting anecdotal reports from people or some initial research coming out that they don't wear as well as our regular chairside, light-cured composite. Now, is the technology exciting? Absolutely. But I could not agree with my rat bro more, Dr. Ortiz, that we have completely mislabeled these. These are not ceramics. Okay, they're not a ceramic crown. I guess if we look up the word hybrid, we could kind of define them as a hybrid, possibly, because they have some ceramic particles in there. But we could then define a resin composite as a hybrid too. So
exactly. It says the only hybrid in the market right now, if we want to even make a hybrid category, is anamic.
Yeah, anamic. I think I couldn't agree more. I would say that those of you that don't understand, anamic is a very unique material. In fact, it's the only really unique material out there. Okay, the company was able to develop with some help from some very famous
Dr. Giordano,
a few others out there, Bob Kelly, a material that has a mesh-like matrix. Get a visualization of a Brillo pad. Essentially, you all know what a Brillo pad is, of a feldspathic glass. And actually, because the fibers are so small, it has a little bit of flexibility to it, which normally a glass wouldn't, and then it's infiltrated with a resin. So realistically, by definition, that's probably the only material we could call a sort of...
and the beauty of anamic, not to rant always about anamics, but just to close on anamic, actually, if you want to, is that it did get the modulus of elasticity to be right in between dentin and enamel, because you get the glass ceramics that are more like enamel but don't like to be sitting on dentin, and then you get the resins that love to be sitting on dentin but they don't love to be sitting on enamel as much. And the genius of Giordani was to say, hey, if we can mix these two things, the modulus of elasticity might be right in the middle, and it was right in the middle. So when it comes to this misnaming of products, especially coming from the blocks, that all the companies who were making composites, when the blocks came about, it was pretty easy for them to make a block and then make it into a composite block that they started naming nanoceramic, ceramic this, and now carrying into 3D printing. The problem with this misnomenclature, not to be a Nazi of the nomenclature, is that for the average dentist, this is a confusing topic to begin with.
Right.
Dental materials is confusing to begin with. So if on top of it we misname it, when they're in a trade show, when they're in a congress, when they're in front of a booth, they're already confused about what they're looking at, and then they're told that it is something that is not. It is making it really hard for us educators to clean that mess up. I'm sure you see it all the time.
All the time.
With your students who are our colleagues who are making clinical decisions. So it also shows how the industry has truly no control.
Right.
Where it's a free-for-all right now, in which you will think that the ACP, the American College of Prosthodontists, or the Glossary of Pros, or the ADA, or someone will be a little bit more watchful and have a say on it. But it shows the weakness of our profession, and the industry sometimes takes advantage of that weakness, that nobody's watching.
Yeah, and to expand on what you just said too, somehow somebody got these materials through the ADA and somehow got an approval for the term ceramic crown, which is completely inaccurate by all terminology that we've already touched on. So now, I guess the good thing right here would bring to a summary. Here's what we can say we know, about these materials.
But I had a question.
They're a resin composite. Okay, all right. But we do want to summarize. So we can answer Dr. Ortiz's question.
As you wrap this up and summarize it, I want you to wrap it up and address it on a statement that Pascal Magna made at the second colored appearance meeting. The second one we had after the Texas. All day they lectured about zirconia, and then he got up, and if you remember, he and Michelle closed it down, and he said, "I hate to blow you all out of the water, but that material will not be the end all. The ultimate material is going to be a resin-based, possible ceramic additive material, and that will be the ultimate." How close are we to that statement? Because and it was kind of shocking because everybody was talking zirconia, zirconia, zirconia. How close are we to that statement?
Okay, so you painted a very broad brush, okay? And let's I guess deal with your question. So we all know Pascal very well, and I've talked to him many times because he used to come over and teach for me at UCLA. As many of you know, he was at USC. All right. His belief, and a lot of people's belief, is that we are going to have some sort of hybrid material that we could define as a hybrid material that has some of the best properties of a ceramic. Okay, very low wear resistance, very high wear resistance. Very low wearability against the opposing dentition. Very high resistance to fracture. Okay. But also has some flexibility, okay, and some ability to bond to a tooth, like the DEJ, right? So those two things, those descriptions of physical properties, some of them define a composite today, a resin, and some of them define a ceramic. And then I know that he has been working with industry to try and develop that hybrid material that has the properties that we said, the best properties of both. How close we are to that, I don't know. But I do think that
I think we're close.
We're close.
I think we're close. I think we're close because resin is not a bad word anymore.
I know
it used to be.
Right.
And resin is being used and sustained by the literature in posterior minimally invasive restorations as final restorations, and it's working, as you and I and all of us here know why it works. So as resin cleans up its name, and we start seeing more studies and more people talking to each other, yeah, I use Ceramart, it works, yeah, I use Lava, it works, yeah, I use Grandio, it works. As those things continue to happen, the fact that you don't need an oven is a
huge,
very appealing thing.
Correct.
And as resin cleans up its name, also what I think is going to happen is my message and many others' instruction message, which is, I don't care how much the restoration lasts, I care how much the tooth lasts. That is also resonating with a lot of people. So this idea of us not trying to find the everlasting material is also permeating through the industry right now. And I'm starting to see people be more comfortable, like myself. Yeah, I can put a resin restoration, this indirect in the posterior, and I know it's going to work. Yeah. And the advantages of being able to repair it, the easier to grind it off, whatever you want to do it, like the easier of finishing and delivering it, it's going to take over that, staining and glazing and baking and sinturing.
Right.
So I can see what Pascal is doing, and just the shift in mind that now resin in the posterior is not a evil thing. That's huge.
It's the closest thing we have.
Agreeing with you, but a caveat. Now let me come in here, please, okay? Because that we could argue based on some of the early points you and I both made that saying the word resin only, okay, also is a misnomer, okay? Correct. Because the materials that are doing the best are resin composites.
That's what I meant. Resin composite.
But say what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Resin composite, as we call it, not just pure PMMA. I was like resin composites, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Nanofill resin composites. Those are the new ones, right?
Right. And then how the technology is involved and what's made it better is those 3 points: making the particles smaller, getting more particles in the mix, improving the resin component of a little bit, a little different, a little less shrinkage, and better bond of the resin matrix to
bonding to the tooth.
And bonding to the tooth.
And understanding how to prep it. I think those things are huge.
And I couldn't agree more with you, your statement, and we've all talked about that, and for you, all of us here, that, the continuum, I couldn't agree more with. I'm more interested in what's best for the tooth, not what's for the restoration.
What do you think, Rich? How far are we from it?
Well, that's what I was asking. Do you think anamic is close? I mean, because the reason I asked is because in that era, in fact, that meeting, I was a huge sculpture fiber core guy. I'd used it for years, and I have, 24-year restorations. They don't look anatomically perfect, but sound as can be. And I had showed those to Pascal, and he goes, "That's it." So I'm just curious where. I've been waiting for that day where we have I suppose it would be a ceramic infused, resin-based, composite-based material. And with I think it's a jet printing that's the next level of technology in printing. Well, with one of my conversations with the industry leader this weekend was about when jet printing really becomes viable. This is when a lot of this is going to change. And you're going to see these materials both with color infusion and all that. Now, I don't understand jet printing, so I can't comment on that.
Anvita, can you explain it, please?
Yes. So basically, I'm going to read from the paper that I have open here. So direct inkjet printing basically relies upon layer-wise deposition of suspensions via printing nozzles onto a built platform, and it is similar to robocasting, except for the fact that the ink is in the form of droplets rather than extruded filaments. So among the technologies that are available for additive manufacturing of ceramics, direct inkjet printing is the only method capable of producing fully dense green parts. And then in order to fabricate green parts via DIP, the processing parameters need to be optimized. So that's what we are looking at. And the last paper that I discussed actually discusses these parameters for improving upon direct inkjet printing. And this multi-layer printing, direct inkjet printing also allows for layer-by-layer deposition that can give us the gradient that we would like in a restoration.
Right. And let me make a simplification statement for the audience. Most of you have all seen printers today, your standard printer that is printing with a very low viscosity resin. Direct inkjet printing, think of it this way, to be able to layer a much more viscous material, okay, almost like a paste, like a composite paste or a ceramic paste, okay, that is much higher fill. So the problem that we have with the printable materials today, the filler content is so low, they need it to be low, so they have a low viscosity material. That's why we're concerned about the physical properties of the material. It comes back to the filler content, the amount of ceramic in there. And
it's a flowable. It ends up being a flowable resin.
Yeah, maybe a good flowable, but it's still a flowable.
The percentage of zirconia ceramic they use is 27%. Ceramic suspension contains 27% of zirconia.
Right. Yes, but that's still not that different than a puck, okay, where there's a lot of air where you fire it where it shrinks, okay?
Right.
Direct inkjet printing that they're working on with resins, okay, resin composites. Better way to say it, resin.
You know what the interesting thing is? The problem that the industry is trying to solve with using 3D printers to get your final restorations with the same materials that we already have. The problem that we're trying to solve has nothing to do with dentistry or the patient. We're trying to solve the problem that there are some companies that have, I don't know, higher share market percentage of milling units, and they keep selling it at such a high price.
Right. I agree.
When they already made their money, that now is pushing the whole industry away from milling units, and we're going to spend all this time, as we say, with zirconia and effort to refine this, just because the one who are selling you the milling units, which work, is still charging you exuberant amount of money when they should start dropping in price.
Yeah, that's the problem. But there's still some other benefits too, okay? The benefit of printing or waxing and pressing or something like, is one, the layering. But number two, you can work with different geometric shapes. Machines basically today, especially the ones in dentistry, maybe not $1 million machines in industry, are more limited in your preparation design. And so just like if you did a gold crown, you could wax to almost wax to and cast to almost any preparation design, okay?
Correct.
A lab could solve that problem. The machines can't do that. Okay?
I agree with that, but the fact that you can print or create a restoration of any shape, let's say to the extreme, any shape, when milling you cannot mill any shape, doesn't really solve a problem, because the restoration still has to sit on a tooth and it has to draw. So even though if you can mill a crazy thing, if you cannot deliver into the tooth, that crazy shaped thing has no meaning. So in reality, the limitation of the millings actually go hand in hand with the limitation of your drawing path or your preparation. So it's not really a problem. It's an advantage and a benefit that I wonder if we even need.
I'm going to push back on that because, and I know you're a lab tech too, so I'm sorry if this, and I do some work for some other people, I don't know if you do it either, but if, somebody doesn't, the internal aspect of a preparation, the incisal edge of the preparation, things like that, the mill tends to compensate by creating a lot of extra space between.
I agree with it.
if I'm pressing and or printing, I can fill in that space.
Yes.
You're right, unless it's undercut. Okay, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
So I do think there's some other advantages, and then the multi-layering to that, and potentially, I think
I'm excited about the multi-layer. Can you imagine if we can multi-layer finally by AI or whatever parameter that we have pre-made, really everything from the inside out, like ceramics trimmed and ceramics building. That is an exciting thing. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Are we wasting our time? Are we letting the industry guide our dentistry? So I have a feeling that in the last 2-3 decades, where the industry is telling us where to go and not us telling the industry where we need to go to solve the dental problems of the patients.
right,
Does that make any sense?
right.
It's starting to be like the pharmaceutical companies that they are making forever pills that you need to take based on what they need, they can make money off, versus making the drugs that people need.
Yeah, but I do think 3D printing does solve a problem. Okay, I really do, and I think it's going to open us up to other materials. And there's an interesting problem with machining, especially glasses. Okay, even more so than zirconia. Man, the burr cost, the burr use. We just machined 20 times. We just machined 200 restorations in the last few days for the course coming up. And basically, I prep well. I know you prep well. Everybody on this page preps well. And there was still some little issues with occasional chips here and there, that we had to remachine, or the sprue popping off or breaking, things like that.
Yeah, but you have 3D printers in your office. They're not reliable. Like they work whenever they want to work. They don't always print right. We will have issues too. Like it's a very moody system, the 3D printers.
I mean,
the current technology, but the newer technology.
I mean, you had issues with casting gold as well. I mean, so to me,
Right.
the printing idea, and
Especially when you miss the crucible and
it's
fly solo.
when you just cast
Okay.
or whatever.
So there.
Technology, I think,
I think the printer technology as proposed, okay, the direct injection printing, okay, but definitely is going to be a significant improvement over to what we have.
well, and you will
Obviously,
better color
I'm not agreeing with everybody at the table here.
Yeah.
I would love to have that perfect hybrid material that I could print, okay? And yes, there are issues with printing. How do you sprue it, right? You're going to still have a sprue. You still have to finish it a little bit, things like that. And there's going to be
jet printing change that? Does jet printing change the position?
No. You just Well, supposedly they're theoretically through a hologram you could 3D print something,
That's what they're
and it
talking
just sits on a tabletop, and
Yeah.
I like what Pascal said. I think I can see what he's saying. We're going. I see a more feasible that dentists rely on composite resins in the near future more and more, rather than us completely figure out how to truly 3D print a ceramic material. I think we're going to get much more comfortable with using composite, direct 3D printer, mill, whatever, and that composite resin will take over more. I think I can see that. And that will serve the idea of how do we 3D print ceramics.
No, I have to deal with you shifted off here, vendors and everything. He was relating it also to implants.
But from a material and a manufacturing perspective, it's going to be printing, and it's going to be some hybrid composite resin that's going to be some future material. Okay, I agree with you on that, Miguel. And also too, you'll have some side shoots. You'll have some lithium bisilicates printed in zirconia. But I could see, other than bridges, obviously for zirconia we're going to need a bridge, or maybe some cool material we don't know about. I think we'll see way more resin composites in the future.
All I'm saying is at some point, I think as Pascal too, was the jaw flexure and everything with the implants, the all-in-4s, to solve the strength issues, you'll easily embed in a jet printing system. You could easily embed a sub frame and inject around that. His whole point was back to what Miguel has said before, and it was really funny at that meeting because everybody was so hot on zirconia. Literally every speaker for those 2 days, and the last speakers, and he just gets up and says, this stuff is going to be gone in 12 to 15 years. So,
Yeah, and also, now you said the second meeting. Wait, okay. So I'm going to push back on this, dude. Okay, a little bit. Okay, you said the second. Yeah, isn't that 10 years ago? That's 10 years ago, that meeting.
exactly.
It's 10 years ago.
No.
It's 10 years later. Were you 10 years later? You just said 10, 12 years later.
We're at 14 years now.
It's 14 years ago.
Probably, yeah. So
Okay,
he said.
so you just said that he said 10 to 12 years from now it'd be gone. It's bigger than ever. It's bigger than ever. It's bigger
He was
than
off on the numbers, but I think it's
About 2 weeks ago,
it's been gone from Miguel.
Yeah.
about 2 weeks ago, I did a case.
Okay, so you're making a point that isn't true. Okay, and you're giving somebody's opinion, a very valid opinion. No, I'm not gonna. I'm just trying to let you know that the reality and intent.
I think I need to become the moderator.
Just like you could say 10 to 20 years.
I'm really that. We'll get you with the moderator.
It's
I think you said-
it's 14. Okay.
I think moderator is creating.
You don't know where it is.
You know about 2 weeks ago.
All right here, so I get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, well, okay, Mike, but I wait. By the way, I wait.
Point is, if you're speaking for saying 10 to 15, you don't know what it's going to really be. It might be 20. You hope it'd be 10 to 15.
I think that if you lower, you can do a very low voice, right? Let me see. Let me hear.
That's
Richard.
awesome. I
Yeah.
like that.
I can do it.
Yeah, I like your ball
voice.
Yes, he can do a low voice. You could have been a 1-800 number in the 90s. Make a lot of money.
Listen.
Sure. I let you finish, and then I push back, and then you jumped in, which is okay. That's the nature of we're random.
Let me share something related to what we're talking about. About a month ago, I did 3 cases. But remember that day I tell you, like, this week I'm doing a lot of cases. I put them on together.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of full arch cases that needed, extraction implants and an immediate loaded, like the classic column 4, but more complex. Patient had implants, whatever. So we, extractions, couple implants, photogrammetry on the moment, and then design ExoCAD and 3D print the prototype, the temporary restoration. So as I was about to 3D print it there, I printed 3. Why would I print 1 arch? Might as well, right? You put it on and then now the patient has one in the mouth that is temporary, right? Until heal. I'm not going to take a final impression again, except for the tissue as it heals. But I was thinking at the moment, I'm like, and why do I have to switch this to zirconia? Right?
Yeah.
Like why? Like, it's thick. This thing is not going to break. And if it breaks, I have 2 more in the drawer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I that thought process, I always think that if I think of something, I'm not a genius. Like, a lot of people are going to start thinking of this. And why do I have to switch to zirconia for 6-7K, whatever the lab is charging you? Why? And when it breaks, I did another 6-7K of zirconia. I already have the design. Go with this plastic home. If you ever have an issue, come back. I have 2 more.
Right.
And in that sense, I wonder if, again, now resin composites in the area of full life reconstruction, mandibular flexion and all that, I can see a future there. We the industry, did a little bit of experimenting with PEEK, right? Like, it's going to save the world. It didn't. But we were already trying to get away from zirconia, especially in Europe about 5-10 years ago. So that's an interesting question too. Do we need all the all-on-4s to be zirconia? If you know how to print and you have a printer that now and you're doing 1-day crowns, are you going to give a lab 5K for an all zirconia when you can just print an arch? And
No,
probably a pink resin on it that is cured?
Is not like Miguel.
Were you asking me a question?
Well, no, I was just saying, Miguel, I have a case in right now, and that exact same thing's been going through my head. Because the actual the prototype looks great, it's holding up great, and we printed another one. I mean, why? So, I agree with you on that. Why do we have?
Well, okay, so let me answer the question. Yeah, you guys, I'm neutral on this. Let's revert back to a second. My point would be, as long as we have a material that satisfies our requirements, I'm loving the idea of a composite resin, but the maybe future properties that we have, that we can layer color with a 3D printer. We have the physical properties that will resist fracture. We have the physical properties that'll wear like enamel. I'm all on board for that, okay? What we don't have is that material yet. So we are stuck a little bit in the zirconia space right now for bridges. And we had this discussion last time, zirconia or Emax. Or lithium disilicate or Suprinity or any of those light materials. I'm 1,000,000% on board with that, my friend, okay? Until we have that material.
And Rita, what do you think? Is Pascal right?
That's it. I was not at the meeting. I mean, but I think hypothetically speaking, if we have something that has best of the both worlds, then we have our answer for the perfect material, because we have been chasing this perfect material for so long. That's my take on it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for that review, Rita.
Yeah, I know I got to run to some academic function. Okay, so
yeah, it's a group leader thing. So
no problem, boss.
Yep. And then when you decide the topic for the next one, let me know. And
okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you. I like Mike, Dr. Young. You can
we love that. We love that ball, man. Big balls.
I think he should open every chapter.
I think so.
I think there's Dental Raves. I just really think so.
This is Richard from Gar.
We are now going in.
My big ball.
North, so.
And by the way, we should start this segment with Ace from AC/DC, big balls.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
So, Dr. Young, start us off. Tell us something cool. Give us some rave, something new that you've been playing around with that we'd love to know about.
Well, I can say that, I mean, we never thought I was probably the hardest core guy that I'll never go to a one bottle, a one component bond. But I will tell you, I know Ferrari's just released UBQ2. It'll be presented at CDA. And in that bod genre, it's handling really incredibly well for your, things that aren't too critical. When I'm deep in dentin, I go to to SC Protect or SC or something else, but it's handling incredibly well. And I think for a lot of dentists, it's going to be great.
Repeat the name of the product for
you.
Repeat the name of the product for the audience.
Quick, but it's the version 2. I'm not going to get into the details on it, but it's they've thinned it down, and yet
it's a single
strength.
It's a single component bonding agent that you've been using. Okay.
Yeah.
And you etch the enamel or not?
Beg your pardon? Etch? Yeah,
you etch the enamel or not?
You do, but it's set up. The reason it's kind of interesting is it's kind of no-brainer it'll go no etch, selective etch, or total etch. So we know in dentistry it's hard enough to get people to selective etch, and then other times they won't forget to write any etch on. So kind of covers all the grounds.
Yeah, okay.
And the bond strings have been showing to be really good. We'll be putting it out for the CDA meeting, and handled really beautifully. And it's, we'll see. The bond tests are showing really well.
Okay, so question to you. So you're doing that for direct, it sounds like. Would you use it for your indirects?
Yeah, for the indirects? Yeah. So you can use it with their Panavia, their regular, the blank of the name. It'll kill me. Panavia SA cement. So if you want to increase the bond strength of SA cement, you can use it for that. That was what it was really designed around. So you can improve that bond quite a bit as well. I think the biggest thing with their product was the amide monomer that doesn't require you to scrub for 20 seconds. It's a fast, quick bond technology to dentin. So we're doing all we can do to get people to scrub for 5 to 10 seconds, leave alone 20. And
when you say, I'm sorry, you said MI technology, if I heard you correctly?
AMIDE. It's another patented technology.
Amide.
They've replaced HEMA.
All right.
You have that in the one if you played with UBQ, the regular, that's the amide monomer. but they added another proprietary material that reduces the thickness without losing any further bond strength. So that's another proprietary material of theirs. I haven't put it to memory, and that'll be introduced. But it's just, when I think of that material in these one bottles, it's pretty scary with them because there's handling characteristics that need to be followed. And when you look at big clinics and with composite dentistry, one of the biggest issues is handling the bonds correct. And we know that for those of us who have been, etching dents since 85, scrub times, all of that was super critical. So this UBQ product, so that's kind of the new one that I'm seeing. It'll be introduced in CDA. Like everybody else, they brought out a one shade that's covering. Wow. Well, there's two tubes. It's a universal and a universal UD, which goes for A3.5 and deeper. And that's a great.
So I'm a little unclear. So there's a bonding agent and a separate composite with the system. So you got two. You got a bonding agent, a new bonding agent, UB2.
Yep. UBQ2.
And then
they've released their new ES Universal Anterior Composite. And that will be presented at CDA as well. Like everybody has a universal. They finally brought out their anterior universal. And it comes in two shades. It's just U and then UD, which is for darker. Looking good. It handles really well. It handles beautifully. It's a flowable that's actually a stack. You can cone it up. So it handles really nice in that sense. You can put it where you want. It's got a little more viscosity to it. And so the handling of it was beautiful with Class 5s because you could just move it where you wanted it. So far it looks good. So those are some.
So the idea is it's a flowable material, the composite part of it, and does it have a more viscous, pasty system with it?
That's the feel of it. Yeah. So you could actually ice cream cone it, like you put it up down. You can create a little ice cream cone with it.
Okay. So it's kind of between what most people would think of as a flowable or a paste composite.
Well, yeah, the problem was, some flowables are too flowable and others are less flowable. So it's kind of a perfect feel for what it's designed to do.
No, I was just going to say the recommendation of it is Class 5s, black triangles, it sounds like. Are they recommending it for?
Yeah. Any anterior where you would use an anterior flowable.
I was going to say I wouldn't use a flowable for a Class 4, but for the other uses, I Class 3s, Class 5.
Correct. Class 3, Class 3s for sure. And I think it'll be nice with black triangles because its ability to pull the color. So we'll test it on that.
Great.
It seems like it's higher viscosity.
Small Class 2s.
Yeah, well, they have a exterior universal.
All right. So
yeah. So that's that.
So so would you give it? Would you give it? Okay. So remember, we got mostly probably general dentists listening to us in the lab, some laboratory people, of course, because we appeal to that audience, and some patients too. I hate to use the word caution, but how would you recommend somebody maybe to try this material?
Which, the flow or the both?
Well, the bonding agent and the flow. Yeah.
So the bonding agent itself, my rule of thumb with any of these one bottles, is I have two basic bonds that I use. I use SE Protect, where I have deep dentin, a lot of dentin, where I'm really concerned about stresses and that. And then for your smaller restorations, shallow Class 1s, Class 3s, shallower Class 5s, the UV Q2 is going to be really nice, especially in in like black triangle work in the front. Its thickness, it's not as pooling, so it handles really well up there. So the composite itself, I think, is great in Class 5s. The only thing with any of these universals, I tend to, some people call it immediate dent sealing resin coating in these deeper Class 5s. So what I do for that resin coating is I use a more opaque flowable. And that's, I think, with any of these, so that when you lay your final layer of this universal, you're going to pull color from around the enamel, but you'll have masked out some of that deeper, dentin area. So I guess it's a nice material.
Okay, great. So Dr. Young's rave is a new material to look at from QRA/Noritake. It's a combined company, a new universal bonding agent, and a new sort of semi-flowable material that's a unishade material. Great. I'll give it a look, buddy. And let's move on to Dr. Ortiz. What would be your cool new rave for us?
Something that we might look into future episodes for a literature review, which is telegrammetry.
Okay.
Photogrammetry, I'm sorry. Photogrammetry.
Photograph, yeah.
Which, for those of you who don't know, one of the problems that we've been having for the last 10, 15 years, so since we have dental scanners, is that the normal, regular intraoral dental scanner will take a million different pictures as you move, and they try to stitch them together. And that stitching is proprietary for each company and how these pictures are put together to create a three-dimensional image. That stitch has always been the weak link, right? We have 10, 15 years of studies saying which is more accurate and precise, is there three-dimensional distortion, blah, blah, blah.
Brilliant.
And even though scanners have gotten good enough that we're not talking about it anymore, how good a scanner is, because they're all good now, we still know that if we want to do full arch implant restorations, a little bit of three-dimensional distortion will give you trouble, especially if you're doing a zirconia rigid that you try to seat it and then you have to verify the cast because it's not going to seat or it's going to put stress on the screws, restorative screws, whatever. So what seemed to be the solution, which is to wait for the scanners to get better, jumped immediately into a different type of scanner, which is the one that you people maybe have seen, that people put like these little domino things in the mouth. And now you get this machine that from the outside of the mouth will read all these little abutments or scan bodies with domino-looking dots, and in 2 or 3 of the pictures that it can capture all of them at the same time, it will capture the position of all the implants with respect to each other with tremendous accuracy and precision. You don't get the intraoral tissue with this one, so you will still have to scan the tissue. But I've been playing around with this technology in the last few years, and you know, when you begin, you don't know what you're doing, and with the help of Miss West Dental Arts and Ibiza Dental Lab, I've been playing around with it, and I've been getting very good results to the point that you can do large cases in which you're doing an L4, an L6, or implants that are already there. And it takes literally like 5 to 10 seconds. It goes like beep, 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 beep. It captures all the implants. Now you have them in the computer, and now you can scan intraorally the tissues or the entirety of a provisional denture that you have. And you can, within minutes, merge these two together, and now you have a final impression of implants that I know by fact because I've seen it in my own practice, and I also talked to Dr. Sinara, who's been doing it for a long time in Arkansas. You don't need to verify the cast anymore. There's no cast verification. This thing is accurate enough that now you can 3D print your provisional full arch. You can send that to the lab and make it out of zirconia. Funny enough, I use as a guinea pig my father-in-law, who lives in Canada. So my father-in-law has had compromised health. So coming to the United States is very nerve-wracking for him because he doesn't have health insurance, and if anything happens, he's trapped into the system. And he needed a full mouth reconstruction, and he came in for like a week, and I did that. I did exactly that. I extracted everything needs to be extracted. I did all the implants immediately with the photogrammetry, did everything I had to do. I 3D printed temporary full arch for him, but I knew the next day I had the final zirconia, and I went directly to final with the implant that I had placed 2 days ago, and it just sat so beautiful. I got lucky and the occlusion was okay, so I didn't have to deal with that. So I am impressed out of war with this technology that truly came to solve a big problem that we have, and it makes the process of delivering a full arch restoration seamless. I can tell you guys, I will never in my life convert a denture chair size ever again. I don't want that mess. I don't want that experience. I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm done converting a denture, cutting it, making holes, picking up no.
So
I can go like this, and within 45 minutes, I have a perfectly tissue design provisional that goes in the patient that I just need to screw in. And that's the combination of photogrammetry and 3D printing. Sorry.
There you go. My understanding is that the specialist, so for most of us that don't place our own implants, the photogrammetry would be at the specialist side, correct? So if it's your periodontist or whoever's doing your implants for you,
it would be great if they can take that. Like all they have to do is after they put the implants and the uni abutments, put the scan bodies and scan. But even if they're not going to find it, it would be great if you specially can do that.
That's who has the technology generally, as my understanding. Because my roommate in dental school, Curtis Pond, and he works with a periodontist that has that in-house, so that they're doing it. So that's my understanding, right? It's whoever's placing
it's dropping in price beautifully. It's dropping in price beautiful, that technology. Blue Sky Bio I just got an email or something, a notification for that this week. They're releasing their own, or whoever they're collaborating with. I think it's like $13,000.
Yeah. And
so dropping.
So to summarize then, the basic point is that imaging technology, whatever we want to call it, programmetry, or any sort, is getting so good that we can do this stuff at a very high quality in a very short turnaround time, and eliminate some of the big messy procedures we have to do with things like viscogel in the past. Oh, that's great. Okay, so my rave would be, and then we'll do a rant, and we could rant forever, I suppose. And I won't take more than a couple of seconds because I've just been so impressed with what I've seen with the evolution of resins. Specifically with the development, a little bit of input on my part, but the guy we're going to interview in just a few minutes, Jed Archibald, who's going to share what he's doing in the development and put his own time and money. I helped a little bit, but it was really 95% him, develop really resins that have amazing physical properties, at least for a cast, maybe not for the mouth, but they basically look like stone. So that would be what I would like to focus on, and then we'll do that in a couple of minutes here, that interview. So let's move into, and I wrote a couple of things down here. Sorry, I'm looking at my list of stuff here. A rant, okay? And I got like 50 rants and one rave. Maybe it says something about my personality, but I've been seeing a lot and been asked a lot recently about what is a holistic / detox dentist / the bio whatever dentist. And interestingly, that term, okay? And then now I'm hearing a lot of people talk again that we talked 20 years ago about cavitations in bone, and where people have had wisdom teeth out and that it's never healed, and that's created all kinds of systemic system problems, even like an autoimmune disease or something like that, which I'm not discounting as a possibility. Or more recently, it's starting to cycle again where people are saying they would never do a root canal. Everything is an extraction if a tooth needs a root canal, because root canals don't work, and placing implants. So my rant about that is, and I would recommend people look at recently Marcus Blatz posted a paper, and it's up on his Instagram, a very good review about the success or failure of root canals versus implants. And actually in this review, I believe it was from roughly about 10 years ago, root canals actually survived a little bit better than implants done exceptionally well. So, and there's an interesting point about that. Should one or the other be the treatment? In my perspective, I would do the least invasive treatment, and then if that doesn't work, we can always move on to the next treatment. I saw some guy on the internet say 90% of root canals that he does fail. Well, I'm guessing that 90% of everything he does fails, okay? And I can tell you well-done root canals, and I don't do root canals. I have endodontists do them for me. I see extremely low amounts of failure, extremely low amounts of problems. And if we end up losing a tooth or two occasionally, fine, we can do an implant. And what people forget, they say there's bacteria around, because the dental tubules we don't completely seal off. There's 40 trillion bacteria in your intestines. Not all of them are good. And it's the same thing around a periodontal ligament. You have a few bacteria. This is normal. This is a human biologic or a biologic process. The problem is when too many bacteria overwhelm the system to be able to deal with it. Yes, we need to do that. We need to do something that if we can't keep a healthy biologic around a tooth, but also we look at implants. You can put an implant in. There's an oral connection to an implant. Sometimes that interface fails, where bacteria get around that interface. And when you see implants fail, the bone around there, the failure is miserable sometimes and very, very problematic to correct. So any audience that we have watching out there, whether it's a general dentist or hopefully we have some patients, a well-done root canal by a qualified person, doesn't have to be a specialist, but a qualified general dentist on a tooth that should be successful is really the way to go. So sorry about my long rant, but I get very concerned about some of these things I see in dentistry. I saw some dentists today. This social media thing is so fascinating on both levels. We talked about that on our first show. We're talking about that the shape of your central incisors and the relationship of your incisors is related to how your mother or father treated you. So if they treated you nice and you were at a good relationship
but
with
that
your
is
mother,
true. That's been demonstrated. I have friends that the parents smack their front teeth and they have the size after the smacking.
that's different. Okay,
So there are really...
No. I'm not talking about trauma.
If my dad, when he used to hit me like this...
That's a different. No, I'm not talking about a traumatic development.
Oh!
I'm talking where there was trauma to the tooth. I'm talking where if your parent was a certain type of personality, they were a little bit harder on you, your teeth developed differently. It grew differently. Not talking about a physical process. Someone was
Can you
hit.
imagine if that turns out to be true?
Well, okay, come on, man.
I want to push back on the root canal. I'm going to rant on your rant. Can I rant on your rant?
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Go on,
I
Miguel.
think that there is something about root canal conspiracy that might be true. Something, not everything. I'm not against root canals. I think the science is solid. But I won't put my hands on the fire to say that 50 years from now, we're going to be looking back at root canal and saying that they were as good as we think they were, as everything else we're doing.
I'm not just, I don't disagree with.
I think we're putting something that is not from the body, in the body. We're not really fully cleaning it. I did root canal research I actually did this. This was my graduation research in Harvard because I realized a month before graduation that I needed a project to graduate. And I went to the end of the department and I did 100 root canal, 50 on a sterile surgical environment and 50 without. And then we looked inside and they were all contaminated. But the idea that we can just put something in there, a filler, on a tooth that now has no innervation or vascularization, and that because our measure of success and survival in dentistry says that it lasts, that is good for the systemic body, I'm not going to put my hands on the fire for that one. I can see how if we go and analyze the tissue right around periapically, man, there's a bunch of stuff.
Okay, so what I think we should do on this...
But now with CT, yeah, let me push back for a second, then I'll let you in, Richard, okay? With now computerized CT technology, we can look around a tooth, we can look, say, and if we don't see any signs of inflammation, okay, we don't see any signs of bone loss, we see healing of a periodontal ligament, okay, then what is the alternative? The alternative is worse. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying the alternative we have today, extract a tooth, do a bridge, which is very damaging to the adjacent teeth, okay? And or an implant that is not 100% successful, the bone around it, you still have an oral communication.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to be able to do that on teeth that we determine are terminal, okay? But I mean, to be the first choice when a root canal needs to be when a root canal option, the first choice is extraction. You can't justify that. You cannot justify that with the science today. But can you say, yes, is there potential, some biologic reaction, some problem with that? Absolutely. But the same thing could be said about an implant. Go ahead.
So what I think we should do is one of our guests should be the man who can really lay this all out. That's John Cotomy. And if any of you know him, he's an endodontist, part of the car.
Know the name?
And John will pretty much shut this one down really nicely because it's called evidence-based dentistry. And, so I think it'd be, rather than us even trying to get into it, bring in one of the leading guys in this whole area. He's a good friend of mine, John, and let him tell us, because
I'll be able for this
when you have a tooth that comes in that has a silver point in it, there's absolutely perfect bone, and a dentist sees this, and you have to replace the crown because you've got some recurrent gingival decay or breakdown of the porcelain or whatever, and they'll go in and say you have to do a new type root canal on this tooth. Yet that tooth has been asymptomatic and evident perfect for 40 years. Why are we going in and changing something that the body has accepted? So John will really get into this. He would be a perfect person to really open up this work, because based on what you were just saying, Miguel, both of you, I heard rather, and I'm not going to say any names, but I had a prosthodontist friend call me about a statement made that it looks like it may be better to take a tooth out than to do a root canal and put an implant in. That's where it's going. And this was by somebody very, very well known in the dental world. And it was shocking. It was frankly shocking to me when I heard that statement.
I would think about,
that's what I'm talking about.
But I will take it back to this point, which is, even though if we use evidence-based dentistry, and once again, disclosure, I have nothing against root canals. I still prescribe them or diagnose them or propose them when we think that we need it. However, you can gather all the evidence-based dentistry you want, but if we're looking at the wrong outcome, then it doesn't matter. So if we in the future, imagine this scenario, we have a different way of gathering data, and we realize that people who have root canal versus people who have fewer or no root canal develop more skin allergy, right? Or develop more immune system, or develop more this and that, and then you go and you create a theory, and you go and sample the periapical tissue, and you see, fungus and protozoa. Those studies out there, I went to Portugal, and I interviewed, for Masters of the Craft, I interviewed Miguel Stanley, and Miguel Stanley talks a lot about this, and we had a long conversation about it, on this idea that because we're looking at the tooth, we'll not listen to a lot of people, patients reporting they had all of these systemic symptoms. They've been in and out of millions of calls and systemic in the hospital for years, until one dentist say, what about this root canal here? It looks perfect by dentistry. And then they go and pull out the tooth, and the patients claim, many of them, I finally feel better.
But that's not science. No, Miguel, that's not science. Okay, come on, man. Okay, that's anecdote, and we should pay attention to that.
No, it's not anecdote. There is science that shows that when you go and sample many of these clinically, or what we will deem a good root canal, right?
Right.
There is a lot of living organisms down there that could potentially harm.
But I would,
I'm not saying that we
have those in your intestines too. Okay.
Sure, but the intestine is the outside of the body. The inside of the bone is the inside of the body. It's a different story.
Yeah, between the bone and the periodontal ligament is outside the body too. Okay, believe it or not. Okay, so it still has to cross the membrane. Okay, so a few organisms.
No, you're in the bone. If you're in the bone, you're in the bone. You have blood. You have stem cells.
Yeah, no. If you're in the bone, I'm talking
periapical. You're in the bone.
I'm talking about between the PDL and the tooth. Okay.
You're in the bone. That's the inside of the body.
We're getting into nuance here. Let's backtrack for a second. Okay. The point should be. Okay, I would push a lot on this, because we all agree, everybody on this forum anyway, agree, we're going to take the minimal amount of healthy tooth structure off and restore.
I'm not saying pull the tooth.
No. Well, let's go back for a second. No, let's go. Yeah, okay. So then at that point, that is extremely aggressive thing to do, to pull a tooth. We lose bone, we lose soft tissue, and all implants aren't 100%.
It depends. It depends what the side effect. If we assume in this scenario that the current way of doing root canal has any negative consequence to it that we're not seeing,
right?
Pulling the tooth is bad if the consequence is mild. But if the consequence is big, pulling the tooth might not be bad.
I agree.
So it all depends on that.
Right.
So
right. Okay. So the point should be we should do the most conservative thing that we think is going to give the best chance of survival, just like a small filling, just like an onlay versus a crown. Okay. Just like an implant versus a bridge. Just like I'm saying, a root canal that's done well should be your first line of defense versus taking out the tooth. And I'm going to agree with.
but you think I'm arguing that, and I'm not. I'm agreeing with you on that one. I'm not arguing.
Trying
that.
to make it clear for the audience out there that the treatment.
Yeah, but the problem is, Ed. The problem is that your stance seems to defend root canals a lot, and I suggest that we don't dampen the voices that are coming out questioning the current way of doing root canal and questioning what are we using as an outcome. That the tooth lasted 10 years, 15 years, is that an outcome? What if there is some chronic inflammation that is creating systemic issues that we're not seeing?
Right. Okay.
So we need science on that.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Until we have that science and we can demonstrate a clinical problem, something at least, maybe a small biopsy, something like that. Okay, before we start condemning a patient to lose a tooth. Okay,
I agree. No, today to remove a tooth because you're afraid of a root canal is not scientific. It seems to be within dentistry not scientifically sound.
Right.
However, from outside of dentistry, from more of the medical side, the immunological side, there are professionals that are questioning how we're doing root canals, and I find it interesting. The same way that, and I don't want to get into it, we can do this in another one. Actually, this will be a good one for Anvita, which is people are questioning fluoride, and it's starting to look like not a crazy questioning of fluoride in dentistry, right?
Okay, I'm not going to do that
when at the beginning it sounds like crazy.
But I can tell you, biologically, you do need some fluoride to form bone. Okay, it just there's a microscopic amount. But you're right, we're probably putting too much on in our waters. All right, so that's another rabbit hole. We got a lot of fun rabbit holes that we can go down here. All right, so what I just like to leave with the audience, okay, is that you always have to look at when you do a treatment, whether it's medical or dentistry, okay. What is the alternative? Is the alternative worse? Even though this treatment may not be the perfect treatment, okay, is the alternative potentially worse? And that should guide your decision, okay? So as much as we love implants, I don't believe that an implant is better than a tooth if the tooth is basically healthy, if the tooth, the root is stable in the bone and we can demonstrate that there's no lesion around the bone, that it makes sense with today's knowledge base to keep that tooth. Okay. All right. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Just be aware of that.
Yep.